meeting. Mr. Stewart, will you please lead us in the pledge of allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Everybody has the agenda.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second. All right, we have a motion to adopt the agenda. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. Next on the agenda, we have the review of the November 18th, 2025 meeting minutes. Has everybody had an opportunity to review those minutes?
Yes.
All right, do we have a motion on the minutes?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any
Aye.
opposed? Hearing none, motion to approve the minutes carries. All right, next up we have chair and vice chair elections for the planning commission. I think we, at the conclusion of our discussion at the last meeting, decided we did not need a nomination committee or work group or anything. Does anybody feel differently today? All right, do we have any nominations for chair and vice chair?
I move that we approve Will Flory for another term as chair.
Second.
All right, do we have nominations for vice chair? Do we want to take them one at a time?
I nominate Nigel.
All right,
I'll
we have-
second.
All right, we have not any other nominations? All right, so we have myself for chair, Mr. Stewart for vice chair. Do we need to do that on a roll call vote, or can we just do it?
I think just regular.
All right. All in favor of us continuing to serve in our respective roles as chair and vice chair, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. Thank you all for your faith.
Thank you for your service.
Yeah.
We do what we can. All right, next we have a public hearing for a zoning map amendment request by Wells Land Development LLC to amend the proffers for tax maps number 31-1-18, 31-1-108B, and 32-2-1B located at 0 Forest Drive, 0 Bookerdale Drive, Waynesboro, Virginia, also known as the Silver Creek subdivision. With that, I'm going to turn it over to our capable staff. Take it away.
Yes, good evening. So this is a proffer amendment request for the Silver Creek subdivision. It is considered a rezoning, even though the underlying zoning of the property is not going to be changing. So this property is located on the western side of Waynesboro, off of Bookerdale Road, and then also Forest and Bellevue Roads. Take a look at the property here. And my pointer is not working. So the property in question is the undeveloped portion of the Silver Creek subdivision. To the north of it, you have mostly single-family residential. To the south, you've got the Creekwood Village subdivision in Cura Heights. Over to the east, and then also to the west, you've got the development along Lou DeWitt Boulevard, along with that Central Baptist Church. Excuse me. So the applicant has submitted a rezoning application to amend the proffers of the Silver Creek subdivision. These proffers were approved by the city in 2006 as part of the subdivision's rezoning as ordinance 2006-3. The current applicant has volunteered 3 proffers in their place. The applicant has also submitted a preliminary plat, which is currently under review by staff, and it shows a similar layout to the one that was approved back in 2006, showing 100 single-family lots. So a little background on the Silver Creek subdivision itself. In 2005, there was an application to rezone the Silver Creek property. It was eventually approved by the city as ordinance 2006-3. The property was rezoned from RA1, which is now considered RS12, which is our single-family residential large lot, to RA2, which is now considered RS7, our single-family residential small lot. The ordinance also rescinded a conditional use permit for a planned unit development and also included the five proffers that addressed concerns staff had at the time about the impacts the development may have. A preliminary plat was also approved in 2006. It showed 133 lots, of which 34 were final platted in 2007 and 2010, and most of those have been built on. The applicant tonight acquired the property in 2025. So here is a quick look at the 2006 Silver Creek preliminary plat that was approved. The area highlighted in red is the area that was final platted and has been mostly developed in the years since. Zoning of the property is RS7, as I've said, and this is not going to be changing with this application. Most of the surrounding property to the north is also zoned RS7. You also have some RS12, the single-family residential large lot off to the east, and then RG5 and the Creekwood subdivision to the south. The Comprehensive Plan's 2008 land use map designates this property as low-density residential, as it does most of the other residential property in the area. So jumping into the proffers, the applicant has requested that all 5 of the original proffers be removed and has offered 3 in their place. And I'll start walking through each of those. In the first proffer, the former developer, Fairfax Inc., had agreed to construct a road connecting the future Hawk Street to Bookerdale Road prior to the final plat approval for any lot beyond 61. This proffer addressed concerns that staff had at the time about the disbursement of the traffic generated by the subdivision. Without that connection down to Bookerdale Road, most of that traffic would be routed through Forest and Bellevue, with much of that ending up at the Northgate and Rosser intersections. Back in 2005 and 6, when this was under review, there was no light at that intersection. That wasn't installed until 2007. And so this connection to Bookerdale was needed to help better distribute the subdivision's traffic and take the pressure off of that Northgate and Rosser intersection. And this is a shot from that original preliminary plat showing that connection onto Bookerdale. Re-examining this proffer today, staff does believe that the requirement to connect the subdivision to Bookerdale Road should remain in place for 2 reasons. The first is that without this connection, the emergency response times, which is the time it would take first responders to reach the entrance of the subdivision, which would be the first responders would be coming from that new fire station off of Lou DeWitt, would increase from an estimated 1 minute to 4 to 7 minutes without it. The second reason is that this connection to Bookerdale Road would make up another portion of the future planned Lou DeWitt Rosser connector road. This is a concept that shows that connector road that was created several years ago for a VDOT Smart Scale application that ultimately wasn't funded. So the road would start down on the right side of the screen at Rosser, go through what is now known as the Aspen Grove subdivision, formerly known as the Rosser Avenue subdivision, continue through Creekwood Village before crossing over into the Silver Creek subdivision and intersecting with Bookerdale Road. It would then continue across Bookerdale and out to the light at Shepherd Court and Lou DeWitt over on the left side of the screen. The other 2 subdivisions, Aspen Grove and Creekwood Village, are both building portions of the road. Aspen Grove is building the section from Rosser Avenue to its border with Creekwood Village, and then Creekwood Village is building the extension of Tiffany Drive, along with a portion of the road from Tiffany Drive to its border with Aspen Grove. In addition, Creekwood will be dedicating right-of-way for the portion of the road between Tiffany Drive and its boundary with Silver Creek. So staff did discuss their concerns regarding the emergency response times and the future connector road with the applicant, and they have voluntarily proffered to build the portion of the road from Hawk Street to Bookerdale Road, and rather than build the portion of the road from Hawk Street to the border with Creekwood, would dedicate the right-of-way instead. And this is primarily because it would be cost prohibitive to build that section due to the need for another bridge over Pratt's Run to make the border. And staff does support these revised proffers. And so going back to that concept drawing, Silver Creek development would be building the portion outlined in yellow there from Bookerdale Road over to what would be Hawk Street, and then would also be dedicating from Hawk Street down to its boundary with Creekwood Village. And this is an excerpt from the submitted preliminary plat for that, showing that connection and right-of-way dedication. Moving on to the second proffer, the former developer agreed to pay a 26.5% share of the total cost to construct a new 24-foot wide bridge over Pratt's Run on Bookerdale Road. This 26.5% share was determined to be the impact the development would have on the bridge from a traffic perspective. The current bridge, outlined in red there, is a single-lane bridge rather than a two-lane. So staff did do some research in the background of this proffer to try and understand the dollar amount the original developer was expecting to attribute and what plans the city had for the bridge's replacement. We found that the project had never been included in the city's capital improvement plan, the CIP, and the estimates for the cost of the design and construction had also never been completed by the city. Also discovered in 2009 and then also in 2021, the city did complete improvements to the bridge that included rehabbing the bridge deck back in 2009, and then in 2021, completed a full replacement of that entire bridge deck. The city's last bridge inspection report from 2024 classified the bridge as being in good condition. Another factor in the bridge's replacement is the future Ludewitt-Rosser connector road. If the road is fully built out, then Bookerdale Road to the south of the road's intersection with Bookerdale would be closed to through traffic, and the bridge would no longer be used for vehicular traffic. And then at Bookerdale's connection with Ludewitt, down on the southern bottom of that screenshot there, it would be cul-de-saced, so they could keep access for those parcels at that end. So it is possible that this proffer for the parcel cost of the bridge replacements was one of the reasons that this development had stalled originally. And after looking into the background of this proffer, it's clear that the cost and timelines to replace the bridge is and was unknown. In addition, if the Ludewitt and Rosser connector road is completed, the road south of its intersection with Bookerdale would be closed, removing the bridge from use. And because of these factors, staff is supporting the removal of this proffer. The third proffer was regarding the Bookerdale Road pump station for sanitary sewer. The former developer had agreed to contribute a 0.125 acre parcel that the city could use to construct a new pump station. The proffer also included an option for the developer to provide financing to the city for the construction of the pump station if it had not been built by the time it was required by the development. So staff's concerns at the time of the 2006 application was that only about 30 of the 133 proposed lots could be served by the existing sewer mains in Forest and Bellevue. The remainder of the lots would need to be served by the Bookerdale Road pump station, which at the time was over capacity and required replacement. Since this proffer was approved, the new Bookerdale Road pump station has been built on a small parcel of land within Silver Creek development, which fulfilled the proffer requirements, and so staff is recommending the removal of this proffer. In the fourth proffer, the developer agreed to minimize traffic through Forest and Bellevue and also agreed to construct stormwater management facilities so that the runoff post-development from a 25-year storm event would be reduced to the pre-development runoff from a 10-year event. So this development will be subject to the most recent requirements of the Chesapeake Bay Act, and this means that they will be required to provide adequate infrastructure for accommodating all stormwater on site. Review of this infrastructure will occur during the development's public improvement plan phase. And while you were previously allowed to grandfather certain stormwater management requirements from older developments, that is no longer allowed. Today's requirements are much stricter than those in place in 2006 and stricter than the proffer that was put in place back then, and therefore staff is supporting the removal of this proffer. The final proffer that the former developer had volunteered was a master plan document that would guide the construction and maintenance of the development. It included the preliminary plat along with architecture and landscaping design guidelines. The program document outlined the subdivision's objectives, target markets, along with an extensive list of architectural and landscaping standards for the subdivision. These standards were to be enforced by an architectural review board, with the original appointments made by the developer and then eventually taken over by the neighborhood. Staff is unclear if the development of portion of the subdivision did adhere to those requirements, or if the HOA and ARB was ever established. Instead of the program document, the applicant has voluntarily proffered the Silver Creek Phase 2 preliminary plat, which is currently under staff's review. Proffering the preliminary plat provides certainty about what the undeveloped portion of the subdivision will look like in regards to the layout, including the number of lots and the layout of the roads. And the Phase 2 preliminary plat is very similar to that of the preliminary plat that was approved back in 2006. So this is the Phase 2 Silver Creek preliminary plat that was submitted by the applicant. The portion outlined in red at the top of the screen is the portion that is already final platted and has been developed mostly. So everything south of that is what would be done. It does show 100 lots, and the layout is very similar to the original plat, which I'll show you on the next slide. And it includes the connections to Forest Drive, Bellevue, along with Bookerdale Road. The primary difference between this plat and the original one from 2006 is larger stormwater management areas, which you can see at the on the lower portion of the screen on either side of, I think that's Silver Creek Drive. And here again, this is the original 2006 plat. It showed 133 lots, with 34 of those final platted, showing the same connections to Forest, Bellevue, and then also Bookerdale. So the residents of Silver Creek may have bought into the neighborhood with an understanding of the styles and types of housings that would be built there over time and what the overall neighborhood would ultimately look like. Staff is hesitant to recommend the removal of this proffer without some understanding in place to ensure residents know what to expect the remaining houses in the development will look like and how the two areas will blend together. Staff has recommended that the applicant provide some of these details, but hasn't received anything to date. So in conclusion, the proffers approved with the subdivision's rezoning back in 2006 addressed staff concerns that staff had at the time of that application. In the 20 years since, there have been many changes, and this includes the new Bookerdale Road pump station that has been constructed, which alleviated any concerns regarding the sanitary sewer capacity in the area. There are now newer, more restrictive stormwater management requirements in place, and the city has also made repairs and improvements to the Bookerdale Road Bridge, along with significant progress on the future Ludewitt-Rosser Connector Road. Staff does remain concerned about how the new and older parts of the Silver Creek subdivision will blend together. However, staff is recommending approval of the application with the amended proffers. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have, and the applicant is here tonight as well.
So one of the questions I have is relative to staff's concern. Well, before I even get to that question, I just want to be clear that the decisions or the recommendations made tonight does not impact the density of the development.
It only is affecting the proffers. The underlying zoning of RS7 will remain in place.
Okay, so then the question then is, with the proffer, I think it was proffer 5, which deals with the aesthetic and the blend of the old development into the new development. If that stays, does that then alleviate some of the concerns of how the blend will take place?
So that's a good question. I think I think staff has some overall concerns that even what is developed out there currently does not meet what was approved. And when you read this document, it's definitely structured as if, you know, there'll be an architectural review board within the community that will review all of those new builds before they're done. It wasn't, you know, as much put on the city as the city will be responsible for reviewing these things. I wasn't here, not sure, you know, how things got done, but it's my understanding that what's built out there today might not meet all of the requirements of this document. So to just keep this document or not remove that proffer, I'm not sure is the best way forward. I think staff has just thought if there are concerns within the neighborhood, and if there are concerns from council about continuity or architectural cohesiveness within the development, if those are concerns, then there potentially could be a different way of addressing those. But I'm not sure it's just keeping the existing document that is old, 20 years old, and has not been adhered to in the 33 or 34 platted lots.
Okay, so this proffer doesn't necessarily impact it, is what I'm hearing?
So the existing proffer
Correct.
is that would be developed to this handbook, this guidance book, of which there would be an ARB that would review every new house that was constructed and be signed off on. And that, my understanding is that never occurred. And so currently, with this amendment under review this evening, there would be no proffer or no discussion about architectural guidelines. So if you have a concern with that, then that would still remain, because this proposal this evening eliminates this guidebook and doesn't propose any new guidance related to architectural guidelines, if that makes sense.
Do we know why the review board was never created, or?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, this was in 2006. The crash happened in 2008. I'm guessing it got all ready. The package was ready to go. The crash happened, and there wasn't that kind of consistency there that developed that type of review.
I saw some hands in the back of the room. I think maybe we might hear something about that during the public, during the public comment period. But just as for sake of clarity, because this is proffered, our only choices are accept the proposed changed proffers, or leave things as they are. We cannot piecemeal one or two proffers.
I mean, certainly you can have concerns about, it's a rezoning. The proffers are voluntary, and they must be voluntary. But concerns that you have, so if the Planning Commission is concerned about architectural continuity, then certainly you could raise those concerns to the applicant, making it clear that that's something that you're concerned about. And then if they chose to make any kind of amendment or tweak those, then that would be up to them, yes.
Right.
Has there been I know those plats are 20 years old. Are they relying on 20-year-old traffic studies?
No, so they did complete an updated traffic analysis. Like Alisanne mentioned, were not lights at some of the intersections at the time. The 26.5% contribution towards the Bookerdale Bridge, that percentage specifically came from the traffic analysis at the time that said 26.5% would use it. We did have them submit updated traffic analysis, and it was determined that there were no improvements needed.
And with the removal of the other proffer related to the Bookerdale Bridge, that would remain as is, the one-lane bridge?
Yes, so it's, the city has never put in its capital improvement plan to widen or expand that bridge. There have been improvements to the bridge, but not as far as a larger expansion. And the connector road and the plans to cul-de-sac that, it's my understanding that the city, there is no intention of expanding the width of that bridge.
Okay. Just so I'm clear, at what point does that request then come from to expand the bridge?
So,
Is that like something that we determine, council, or?
yeah, no, I think if there was a desire to expand the width of that bridge, it would likely come from some kind of, traffic analysis that determined that that was necessary, and that then council would set aside the funds to do so. I think back as far as the 2008 comprehensive land use map, the connector road was envisioned somewhere along that route. It is being built with the developments or right-of-way being dedicated. And so certainly the desire for the city would be that that connector road would be fully connected, and then kind of making that bridge obsolete to vehicular traffic.
So the idea is to build the new bridge on the speaking
new
theoretically, that if the city was gonna spend money, it would be the idea is it would be to build the new bridge and the connector road as opposed to improving a bridge the plan is to, right or wrong, the plan is to render obsolete.
And the city has applied for smart scale funds, so that's 100% non-local funds for this connector road at least three times in the past and have been unsuccessful. The fact that we're having developers build portions as they go or develop right-of-way, our hope is that at a certain point, if it's not smart scale, but there are there's a revenue sharing possibility that you can apply to through VDOT, which is a 50% match. So there are other mechanisms by which we could look at filling in those final pieces. But yes, that would be an expensive portion, certainly, of that piece because of the bridge.
Can you go back to the new plat I was saying? And I just want to make sure I'm understanding it correctly, that until the Lou DeWitt Rosser Connector Road is built, these 100 lots are going to exit out through Forest and Bellevue? There's no road to put them out on Bookerdale?
No, there is the connection to Bookerdale is required, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they've got 3 points of exit for 100 houses?
Yes. And I don't have the traffic study memorized. It took a percentage and kind of showed a disbursement, but yes, for 100 to have 3 egress points, there was determined no need for any kind of improvements related to traffic.
That's all the questions I had.
Now, are we approving the proffers as a group, or are we approving them individually?
So that would be up to you. Right now, there are 5 existing proffers.
Yep.
And the applicant is requesting that all 5 of those be taken away and that they are voluntarily proffering 3. If you have concerns, proffers are a voluntary thing that the applicant offers. But if you have concerns about the impact any one proffer might have, or the removal of any one proffer might have, that would be something that you all could discuss. And then, hopefully around that conversation, we could maybe parse out if there are ones that are more concerning than others. And then the applicant is offering the 3 proffers in place, so to speak. And can you review those again? So that would be the connection to Bookerdale.
It would also be the right-of-way for the portion from, that's Hawk Street coming down over to the boundary with Creekwood, and then also the preliminary plat.
So proposed proffer number 1 locks them in, to some extent, locks them into this plat and that connection to Bookerdale. And then would also lock them into, and then, okay, proposed proffer number 3.
Is this plat, essentially.
Well, proposed proffer number 1 is in general conformance with the preliminary plat, and then 3 is the 2 is the road connection to Bookerdale,
And then the right of way.
and then 3 is the easements. Okay.
Which is to build the rest of the road.
That would be them dedicating the right of way so that the city could.
Yeah, just dedicating the right of way that allows, instead of building more houses there, and we could never build the connector road, it allows that dedicated right of way.
Or
Right.
us having to, even if we were to get grant funding, having to go back and negotiate for right of way.
Right.
Now, which one was no longer applicable due to stricter regulations now than it was 20 years ago?
Stormwater,
Stormwater.
and then also the pump station has been completed. So those are, there's no need for them anymore.
So really, three of them are affecting the development. Two of them are no longer applicable.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, do we have other questions for staff? All right, thank you.
Alessandra, would you grab the sign up in the back? We did ask people to sign up. And the applicant is here. You,
All right, yeah, does the applicant wish to speak?
Good evening. My name's Bill Moore. I'm with formerly Balzer, now Westwood Professional Services, representing the applicant here tonight. We did the work on the preliminary plat and work with staff. Appreciate all their efforts on this application to date. And just here to answer any questions you all might have.
I guess I would ask, is there any desire or willingness to be able to conform with like existing structures just to keep a conformancy to some extent with architectural design? Or I guess I would also then ask, like, if it's not going to be as conforming, what will it look like?
Okay. What I would say is, and I went through and made a map kind of the houses that are kind of in that area, just to kind of give a better idea of what's there. Most of the homes over there, and I've built a lot of houses here in Waynesboro, a lot of them, you know, in the architectural review on that portion of it, it said that, for example, there's no vinyl siding. You know, on a lot of the houses, there's vinyl siding on there, you know, and it said that it needed to be hardy plank or some kind of material like that. The garage doors facing the road, there was supposed to have been like a 1-foot pillar between the garage doors and two doors facing towards the road. None of that kind of happened. So a lot of these homes that are there are pretty much what we're building. They're pretty much in, you know, I would say what we would be putting there is kind of in conformity. There's a lot of different styles of homes that are over there. There are some smaller homes, there are some bigger homes. The biggest concern is trying to not increase the cost on the building and for, you know, for the end user. What I don't want to happen, I've built over in Pelham as well, and those are kind of more upscale on those homes. 600,000-700,000. I got one going on now. You know, what I don't want to do is the same thing or have happen over in the Silver Creek neighborhood to increase those houses a whole lot more. Those houses, you know, years ago, I know some of the residents, and I put it down on here as well, some of them have purchased within the last 5 years or so, you know, around there. I didn't go through all of them, all 29 of them, but I went through you know, about a portion of them to kind of see, you know, when did they just purchase a home, just off of one of the comments that the city had made. You know, again, 5 years ago, some have just purchased within the last within the last year, and stuff like that. So I would say for you know, I would like to kind of leave that open. I know one of the things on there too was that the house needed to be 2,000 square feet. You know, to try to do 2,000 square feet to try to maintain a certain cost. Again, it's going to balloon the cost, making it kind of more unaffordable for us being able to try to sell the homes. You know, to keep the guidelines kind of in place for what's in there with add and stone to the outside of it. There's a couple of homes with stone on the outside, just on the bottom portion. Then, you know, the rest of the house kind of has no stone on it on the foundation or on the front of it. So, you know, kind of maintaining what's there, I don't think is applicable for, you know, what the kind of desire that has been there, what's happened over the last, you know, 20 years at this point. So I would kind of say no, you know, to kind of offer that at this moment.
So, thank you for
Yes.
speaking. Can you tell us who you are, please?
I'm Julian Wells. Sorry about that.
No problem. I just want to, for anybody who might not know.
Yes.
So I think I would agree that the existing guidance that's there
Correct.
is inapplicable.
Yes.
I think the larger concern is consistency, that we have is consistency with what is there as opposed to something totally different. Is that something that you could speak about in terms of what the plans are for what might go in there?
Yeah, so what I would say, the homes that I would be looking at building there would be somewhere probably in the 15 to 1900 square foot, that would, there's a house, and I can present that to you if y'all need me to, but there's, a couple of the houses, 2424 Bellevue, it looks like a 1-story, maybe with half a story upstairs or something like that. There's another one that is 2417 Bellevue, so a lot of those homes are kind of what we're building right now at the present time. Do y'all want a copy of this right here?
Sure.
Okay.
So are you saying that the homes that are currently there, there's no consistency with conform?
That is correct, yes. Yes, there is no consistency whatsoever.
Based off of what was originally agreed to in the
That is
subdivision.
correct. And I would say what was agreed to back a long time ago, back in 2005 or 6, was kind of,
Yeah, we can.
in the regulations were kind of loose anyways. They kind of put a lot of verbiage in there that was kind of really not,
Yeah, we can take that one down. I'll look off of somebody's homework here. So this, just to be clear, what you've handed us are examples of currently non-conforming with the old,
that is correct, yes.
but you're not saying necessarily that you would be building in, you're not providing this as an example of things that you would be building consistent with, or?
I would say that it would be kind of consistent with that. You have basically the new neighborhood with Silver Creek there. You have Kira Heights that's there now that is of, that's basically a different makeup for the homes that are going in there. The old neighborhood and stuff, you have a whole mixture of different houses throughout that neighborhood. So I don't understand, with the Silver Creek, like the 34 homes that were built there, they were built, for what they decided to put there. This would be a different phase and another phase at this point, so if a different style home went there, and I'm not saying like putting a mobile home there or even something of that nature, I'm saying kind of keeping it in conformity with kind of what's right there right now. Like I said, there's a variety of different homes that are over there just in that Silver Creek neighborhood. And right now, out of the homes that have been built, there were, I think, 6 or 7 lots that had sat there for years that just were purchased within the last year. I mean, within the last 6 to 7 months that are being built on now. And the same thing there. They're kind of doing whatever they want to do. Like I said, so there is a good mixture of different homes over there in that neighborhood.
Can you tell us what the price range is going to be?
I haven't figured that part out yet. Again, the land cost is already high at this point. So trying to figure out what the exact to put there to try to keep the cost, and the constraints there for where it needs to be at, I don't know at this point. I would say the number would probably need to be somewhere around 350 to 400, and I think that's pretty much Waynesboro. That's probably an affordable number. If you start trying to build something different, then you could get into the 550, 600, 650 neighborhood pretty quickly,
Well, but you've done some kind of cost benefit analysis, right? Because we know that asking you to construct the new bridge is not economically feasible.
That is correct, yes.
Okay. So we have some sense of what your unit cost needs to be for your margins to work, right?
So not necessarily. Again, we're still trying to figure out exactly what number to try to get there, and with the other neighborhoods kind of coming up at this point in time, such as Kira Heights and stuff like that, and trying to make sure that the affordable cost again is there. I'm gonna use affordable again. Again, I would say 350 to 400 is kind of what we looked at, or what I looked at on the cost on the sales points for the houses over in that neighborhood, and maybe getting up to 450. I would say maybe 350 to 450 or something like that.
And at that price point,
Yes.
would it be fair to say that your experience would be at that price point, the market's going to demand stuff that looks more like this?
I would say probably so, yes. Yes, I would say it would be right there with what's kind of there now at this present time.
All right, do we have other questions for the applicant?
Are the lot sizes comparable in the new section to what is existing?
I think they're similar. I don't know what the exact lot size is in the old section, but I know the new lot section, I think they're somewhere around 60 foot wide. You know, which is not a big lot. You know, it's kind of on the smaller side and stuff like that. So typically, we're building on 50-foot lots, you know, here in Waynesboro pretty consistently. You know, so this is pretty much giving about 10 more feet. So that's where my other concern kind of comes in, is that, you know, trying to build something that's too much, you know, it's not going to kind of go with the lot. You know, I mean, over there in that neighborhood, a lot of the houses are a little bit close together. You know, again, you go over to the Pelham neighborhood, the stuff is spaced out a little bit bigger. You have a little bit bigger size and stuff like that on you know, in that neighborhood. But yeah, these lots are about 60 foot wide.
All right, do we have other questions for the applicants?
Okay.
All right, thank you
y'all.
very much.
Thank y'all,
I
too.
we
Appreciate it.
appreciate that. All right, we're now going to open the public hearing. This is going to be the public hearing for the zoning map amendment as set forth in the agenda. I'm going to open the public hearing at this time. Do we have anybody signed up to speak?
We do. We have 3 people signed up. First is Mark Glover.
And I'll just remind you when you come up to give us your address, please.
Hello, my name is Mark Glover, 176 Abner Lane, Waynesboro. I'm here representing Central Baptist Church, and we met with Ms. Tombarge last week, and I think most of our questions were answered. We just wanted to make sure that the connector road from Lou DeWitt to Rosser was not in this plan at this time. That still seems to be the case. So that was our main concern, was that would have a significant impact on our property, because I believe the connector road cuts through a portion of that. But as far as the subdivision itself and everything's being considered, we don't have any concerns with that.
You represent the church that's
Central-
right across from
Right
where
across
that's
the
going to
road
come
from
out
that,
there.
yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
That's on Bookerdale.
Yes, sir. So, but yeah, that was our main concern. So just to make sure that the road wasn't going through at this time, because we would just need opportunities to plan and discuss that as a church. So,
Sure.
all right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
The next person we have signed up is Mark Seymour.
Hello, my name is Mark Seymour. My wife and I live at 256 Bookerdale Road. We also own the property at 242 Bookerdale. Chair Flory and other commissioners, member of the council, thank you for this opportunity. The applicant, Wells Land Development, requests rezoning of their property, as you have explained to us this evening, from 12,000 square feet per lot down to 7,000, thus providing the opportunity to build more houses than afforded by the current zoning. And so I have the following observations and questions. And the first observation is, Virginia Department of Transportation estimates that each household has approximately 5.9 trips per day. Nobody makes 0.9 of a trip, so we'll say 6 trips per day. Assuming 100 houses, do the math, 600 new trips per day from Silver Creek subdivision onto Waynesboro's already crowded roadways and streets. So my question is, what is the plan for the city's first responders, city fire, rescue, and others to meet the need of this growing population and this increased travel on the highways? Police data from 2023, which was the most recent I could find, indicated a total number of response calls by police of in excess of 24,000 for that year without this subdivision in place. So in what way has Mr. Wells and Silver Creek interacted with the city and with first responders to recognize and plan for the future opportunities and barriers, quite frankly, to meet these needs? My second observation. The Augusta Free Press reported in May 2025 that at that time, some 1,600 housing units were in the planning stage or being built in the Waynesboro and nearby Augusta County area. So it's presumed that with this number of construction, most of this new construction will be available at market rate. And quite frankly, I was shocked to hear you, Mr. Wells, say tonight that Waynesboro, on average, can handle 350,000 to 400 to 450,000. I don't understand that. And so my question is, what will Silver Creek do to address the housing needs of the estimated 56% of Waynesboro residents who are low income? Median income in the city in the 50s. Average income needed to just maybe get a mortgage for a $300,000 home is $72,000 average annual salary. So for good or for ill, builders are some of the gatekeepers of whether people get into a neighborhood or they're excluded from it. My third observation. The applicant has agreed to designate a 60-foot right-of-way which shall be available for vehicle traffic as well as foot traffic as part of a greenway, and I'm glad to hear that, given that few natural areas will be left once building commences. And the subject property, once it's prepared for roads and houses and driveways and sidewalks, will likely have few mature native trees which can be saved. So question, what will Silver Creek's time frame for construction of the greenway be? And will Silver Creek have a plan to mitigate the removal of native trees, native species, black cherry, of which we have a lot in the property there, which is vital for birds and wildlife, and I've not heard any consideration of the wildlife in our city yet. Fourth observation, I've observed apparent grave markers on Silver Creek property near my own property that my wife Lisa and I live on. These are located on tax map number 31-1-108B per Waynesboro City GIS. And these two markers, which are easily overlooked, are little white crosses, perhaps 8 feet, or 8 inches rather, 8 inches high, very small. Records show that in 2002, Mr. John McNair of McNair and Associates Engineering interviewed Mr. A. Brooks Booker, and reportedly Mr. Booker was told by his father that enslaved people were buried on what is now Silver Creek property, and that burials of enslaved people may have been carried out by a former owner who was recorded as being a slaveholder, Mr. Archibald Stewart. So my question is, historic records of graves and my own current observations are, of course, inconclusive. I can't prove anything. What will Silver Creek do to ensure the dignified and respectful treatment of possible grave sites? And what will they do to make conclusive determination by qualified experts the graves either are or are not present on the property? My fifth and final observation. It's noteworthy that the applicant, Wells Land Development, had apparently not, as of this month, January 2026, per the document of that date titled City of Waynesboro, Virginia, Staff Report Zoning Map Amendment, Wells Land Development had not provided the commission with requested additional information on types of houses to be built, which I think was evident from testimony of Mr. Wells this evening. And so, therefore, given that we don't know what kinds of houses, what types will be built, I submit that the applicant has not provided satisfactory requested information to the commission. The applicant's request for rezoning from RS12 to RS7 be tabled because we don't know what size the houses will be, and that they have not met the requirements of the application submittal process. Specifically, Section 3C of the application requires statements of environmental impacts. And without information on the types of dwelling proposed, a determination of extent of impermeable surfaces which would shed rain and water and snow cannot be determined, therefore limiting the commission's ability to determine environmental impact of Silver Creek Phase 2. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
And then the last person we have signed up is Eric Trinovich.
Eric Trinovich, 1009 High Point Court. I'm in the, I guess what we're calling Phase 1 of Silver Creek. I did want to answer the question about the aesthetic. The old neighborhood essentially had two different builders. One built about 5 or 6 houses, and for whatever reason, probably the crash, sold the properties, the remaining properties, to one construction company, Hudson Signature Homes. And what they did was they had a firm come up with about 3 or 4 different plans for houses that fit in those lots. And then once 2 of those houses were built, that was removed from the plans and a new one was entered, so that the neighborhood would have some coherency, but without being a cookie cutter neighborhood. Does that make sense? So most of us had an option of about 3 different floor plans that met the minimum square footage requirements and the other requirements that he had placed on that neighborhood. So any house that is on Bellevue, the main street in that first part of the neighborhood, there were more strict restrictions on those houses because that was the main road of the neighborhood. All the other ones you could choose to have rock or not rock. You could do vinyl or hardy plank if you wanted to, but that initial stretch, those main roads, all have a very similar look. Honestly, that's not even really the issue. I'm not against the new neighborhood. I think it's hard to stop progress, but I do have 2 basic things that I wanted to make sure were put into record. So I'm just going to read this, and we'll see how it goes. My name is Eric Trinovich, a current resident of Silver Creek, Phase 1. I am grateful for the opportunity to participate in this public process and ensure that the concerns of my neighbors and myself are formally entered into the public record for this meeting. I've thoroughly reviewed all available documents, including the original rezoning papers from December 6, 2005, the proffer clarification from January 4th, 2006, Mr. Wells' email regarding proffer changes from December 8th, 2025, and believe it or not, I read all 98 pages of the traffic impact study. Never in my 43 years did I think I would care about a traffic impact study. But the timeline for the construction and completion of the connector road is a major concern. The clarification letter from January 4th, 2006 stipulated that the road must be bonded or constructed prior to final approval for any lot beyond the 61st unit. However, in Mr. Wells' recent letter, it indicates it'll be a part of Phase 4. Until this critical piece of infrastructure is fully operational, all traffic from the new development, potentially up to 1,273 vehicle trips per day, according to page 8 of the original rezoning document, will be funneled through 2 exits on Forest and Bellevue. I ask the board to consider the significant decrease in quality of life this influx of traffic will cause in our currently quiet neighborhood with low traffic. I doubt very much any of you sitting there would enjoy up to 1,200 cars driving through your neighborhood every day. Furthermore, while the traffic impact study suggests the development will not create undue stress on the 3 main intersections it analyzed, it appears to miss the larger context. What will be the cumulative impact on cross streets such like Davis and Northgate, especially considering the numerous other housing developments already planned for that area? Traffic congestion is already considerable, compounded by the lack of dedicated turning lanes at Northgate and Rosser. The potential installation of medians on West Main Street between Bookerdale and Vedette raises further questions regarding the impact of these 1,200 additional daily trips, particularly at Vedette and North Main where the light at the Sheets is. Finally, the effects of new school bus routes, student pickups, drop-offs on current traffic patterns have not been adequately addressed. The 98-page report, while detailed, seems to narrowly focus on specific metrics and fails to consider the overall negative impact on the daily lives of current residents as Waynesboro continues to absorb a disproportionate number of new homes, vehicles, and people. Builder reputation. I believe that partnering with a company like D.R. Horton is a disservice to both current and future residents. National home builders often prioritize profit margins, utilizing the cheapest local contractors and aiming for rapid, minimal code compliant construction, which can negatively affect the long-term quality and character of a community. Also, Mr. Wells currently sits on the Board of Building Code Appeals. That seems like there could be a conflict of interest there. The public record of D.R. Horton's reputation is alarming. They score a 1.8 out of 5 on Trustpilot, with 91% of the reviews being 1 or 2 stars. Consumer Affairs, they also have a 1.8 out of 5, with over 1,500 of the 1,800 reviews being a 1 or a 2 star. They are not an accredited Better Business Bureau builder with an average rating of 1.08 with over 300 reviews. It is deeply concerning and frankly appalling that a company with such a consistently poor public reputation would be entrusted with what is, for most people, the largest and most significant purchase of their lives. As a resident of Silver Creek Phase 1, where the homes were built by a local small custom builder with attention to quality, I implore Mr. Wells to reconsider lumping this new development under the established Silver Creek name. I request that a separate, distinct name be chosen for the new neighborhood. In closing, while I'm pleased to have my comments entered into this public record, I must express a deep concern that these decisions may have already been made, motivated by the anticipated tax revenue for the city coffers, an offer that residents just can't match. I remind everyone, especially elected officials, you are accountable to the residents of your wards and to the current citizens of Waynesboro, not developers or corporations. Please remember your obligation to the electorate, especially as, not you guys, but some other people, their seats approach re-election. Thank you for your time and consideration.
That's all that we have signed up.
All right. Is there anybody else who would like to speak who did not sign up to speak? All right, hearing none, I'm going to now close the public hearing for the zoning and map amendment as set forth in the agenda. I want to just make a couple comments in response to the public comments. Just to be clear about exactly what we're considering here today. So this zoning amendment cannot change the zoning density. That was done in 2006. So it can't go back to large lot residential. That's done. And I heard specific concerns about environmental and that kind of stuff. The environmental piece of this is considered, and staff can help me here, because I will admit that I am not an expert in this subject matter. But for example, pursuant to the way that these large parcels get developed, they have to take into account the stormwater, they have to take into account the statewide environmental regulations that are set forth. They do not, as I understand it, have to, because that is not something that's set forth in those requirements, have to take into account, for example, trees. Because that was a specific concern I heard. That's just not something that the code, the law gives us the authority to add as a requirement. So while we hear and understand many of the concerns, traffic specifically, what the code says we have to do is go on the traffic analysis. We don't always agree with the traffic analysis that are presented, and sometimes I think, as a planning commissioner, I find that the traffic analysis sometimes don't meet with or match my lived experience as a citizen of the city. That's what the requirement is that we have to consider when we consider these things. So I think what we're faced with, certainly what I see that we're faced with here today, is what the proffers were versus what the new proposed proffers are. And the biggest concern that I have about the new proposed proffers is the lack of some representation in the form of a proffer addressing the issue of architectural consistency between the prior and the existing. I think what you see here in terms of plat is probably what you're going to get, regardless of whether it happens now or it happens 5 years from now or it happens 10 years from now. It's what you're going to get. So I think the question is, how can we make sure that the proffers that are provided as a part of this development best serve the citizens of Waynesboro? And I would love if there were proffers involving the full construction of this road. Unfortunately, that's just not where we find ourselves here today, for a variety of reasons. So that's where I think we find ourselves as a commission.
Would agree.
I agree.
So, with the 3 voluntary proffers, were there any that staff added on outside of those 3?
So we,
No, so the applicant came to us, essentially keeping the development very similar to what was approved in 2006. The square footage of the lots, even down to the number of lots, essentially is all pretty much mimicking. The road connections is kind of exactly what, not exactly, but very close to what was identified in 2006. Kind of eliminating the proffers that no longer are needed because of 20 years of changes. The main things that are changing tonight, if approved, are that the developer is not required to pay 26.5% of a bridge widening, of which we are unsure what that cost even is. So that is changing. And then right-of-way dedication for a portion of a connector road. And then they're proposing a connection to Bookerdale. The current proffers have it needing to be made at lot 61. So that is also a change of when they propose to make that connection. But those are that's kind of the things that are changing. So those 3 proffers address staff's concerns today. I think when it comes to the design and the architectural consistency, it's difficult because we have documents that maybe weren't, exactly adhered to and are written in ways that can be, it says that suggested that you use these materials and things like that. And so staff did note that, there could be the potential for architectural inconsistency, but staff doesn't really evaluate. I mean, we don't have other developments within the city that we're requiring certain architectural design guidelines on. This was structured in 2006 that it would kind of be self-policing in some ways because we don't have an architectural review board or staff that's out there reviewing all developments. So we raised that point just to say, if a concern of yours, that might be something to raise. But those are, other than that, it meets the concerns that staff has and has changed. Certainly the concerns back in 2006 were such that those 5 proffers were put in place to allay the concerns from 20 years ago. And we feel like the proffers voluntarily submitted meet the concerns that staff has today.
It would still, I'm sorry, there will still be the entry/exit for first responders off of Bookerdale.
Yes, the existing proffer says that they'll make that connection before the 61st lot is platted. They're proposing to amend that. So could that connection come towards the end of the development? Yes, but it will have to be made. They've proffered that, so it will be done. And yes, that's how it'll be a quicker response from our emergency responders.
If we approve the request, then it can go beyond the 61st.
And if that's a concern of the Planning Commission, you could certainly, note that that's a concern of yours. And then that would be up to the applicant to determine if that's something that if that's a concern that they want to address in some way.
let me ask you another question. Let's say that the existing residents formed an HOA tomorrow, and the day after that, they formed an ARB.
We have an HOA.
Do you have an architectural review board?
It's a great question.
Would anything, if we did not disturb the existing proffers, would any new houses built on the old platted map be subject to that architectural review board?
If you made no changes.
Correct.
I mean, we would certainly have to review it with our legal counsel. What if, so these documents they are the zoning of the property. So I think that I would definitely have to consult with our legal counsel in terms of, you know, of the 30 that have already been built, how did they comply or not with the requirements? Does it make it obsolete in some form? I'm not sure.
I think that would also be part of my concern, as much as I would like for there to be some strict conformancy. I think there has been comments made to be somewhat relative to what's currently there. There could be a struggle holding someone accountable for something that hasn't yet been followed previously. So that would be a concern of mine.
Yeah, sure. And certainly, it would be a little bit unfair to demand that of new construction when it hasn't been followed. But my question is, if that's the state of the proffer now, I mean, what the ARB and the HOA chooses to do about existing non-conforming properties is none of our business. What they'll do is they would have the power to review new construction. They could do whatever they wanted with their ARB. They could choose to enforce certain things or not choose to enforce certain things. I think, and I didn't read the old proffer, and I haven't seen the guidelines. I read the old proffer. I don't have it committed to memory, but I haven't seen the guidelines. But I think my understanding is it contemplated pre-construction architectural review.
Before anything was built, plans would be reviewed and approved by an ARB.
By an ARB.
Would it have to be a city ARB, or is that like?
No, it'd be an HOA. It'd be an HOA established ARB.
The way it's worked is the plans were submitted to the builder that owned all the lots. And if it met his requirements as far as square footage and overall aesthetic in the neighborhood, it was approved to move forward with it.
Yeah.
Now that's been signed over to me. They did sign something saying that once I purchased it, that it did turn over to Wells Land Development at that point.
Right. Well, and I mean, it's pie in the sky, but our choices are take what's been offered or reject what's been offered in reality. And so I just want to make sure we fully understand the consequences of rejecting what's been offered or accepting what's been offered. I have.
One of my concerns is, and I'd like to hear from the developer. I'm like, Will, what you have is what you're going to get. What is the reasoning, or maybe I missed it, that you don't put the connector road in first? Because you're building 100 houses. That's trucks, tractors, equipment, the whole 9 yards coming in. Why not build a connector road to Bookerdale first and truck all that equipment in instead of coming through the existing neighborhood and building away from it?
One of the reasons, same reason they did it on the first part of Silver Creek, not trying to be smart, but the reason they did it on the first part of it, and they didn't do it on the end part, or at the beginning. The other part of it is too, we're not looking at constructing a whole 100 lots at first. There'd be no possible way that I could do that. We would be, potentially looking to do, and I don't know what that amount is, so I don't want to be held to it, but, it could be 20 or 25 lots per year or something like that. It could be 35 lots. I don't know at this point in time how many lots that would be, but it would not be trying to develop, for me at this present time, at this moment, trying to develop a whole 100 lots at this same time. That would not be what we'd be looking at doing at this present moment.
Okay, if you're looking at 20 to 25 houses a year,
Correct.
why not start at Bookerdale?
A lot of the infrastructure and kind of the water flow and stuff where everything is coming in on that side right there. Now we had done a water flow with the fire department, and there was enough water flow to kind of start getting some of the additional infrastructure in. If you started on that end, it would balloon the cost on trying to get the infrastructure in, that back portion in first. It would cost too much to try to do that. It would be too conducive on cost to make that happen as well.
So I want to be, so just to be totally clear about what you're saying, you're talking about it would be cost prohibitive to build from Bookerdale up the hill.
That is correct, yes.
Okay, so your intention would be to start at the existing and work your way down.
Potentially, yes. That is, I think, what we had outlined, correct.
All right, I heard some, and since you're here, I'm going to ask you.
Yes.
Do you know anything about the grave sites? I know there was archaeological something was done back in the 2000s. Do you know anything about that?
It was actually in the report. They'd actually ordered some studies on that, and they came up inconclusive on finding anything at all. So what they had put there in the report was that I can't remember the guy's name, but that
I saw that there was an archaeological study done, and then they came out and they looked around, and I just didn't know if you had if you've been on the property and seen what the gentleman's talking about or anything like that.
No, I've heard, different people have told me that they've been there kind of in that in that area. But there was nothing that kind of, that you can actually see that was actually kind of visible or anything like that.
And I assume like all folks that do site work like this,
Yes.
Whoever does your site work will have a protocol for the discovery of remains and all those sorts of
That
things.
is correct, yes.
Stuff like that.
That is true.
That's a standard part of doing site work under these circumstances.
That is correct, and especially in that area where that was notated at, So same thing they did, I guess, when they built Bookerdale. The same thing could have been there, 50 years ago, back in the 50s and 60s, when all that stuff was put in, right? The grave site could have been there. There was houses built right there at the property line as well on the backside. So any of that stuff, if something was there, could have been disturbed there at that point in time as well.
As somebody that's been involved in an unknown cemetery that was found during construction.
Mm-hmm.
That's wooded. You're not gonna walk out there unless you know what a grave depression looks like. You're not gonna notice it until you remove the vegetation, and then you're gonna see the darkened soil. And then the only way you're gonna confirm it is with GPR.
That is correct. That's actually what they had done in the report. So that is actually in that book. It's there in that report. They'd actually went and dug some sites up, if I'm correct. But I do remember that being in there. They did go in and check the site to make sure if anything was there.
Yeah, there is a 2-page letter dated January 24th of 2002 that was submitted with the original rezoning documents by John McNair and Associates. I have not reviewed the letter in its entirety, but talks through the potential of a slave burial site and kind of inconclusive results as they looked through that. So I'm happy to provide a copy of that letter to anyone.
You put it in our packet.
Okay, I thought it was, okay.
Yeah, because with any enslaved cemetery from the past, they probably didn't have headstones and they probably didn't have footstones to identify the graves. They were laid down. Sometimes, if you were lucky, they were laid down side by side in a row. Other times, they were just placed around. But I'm like Will. I would like to see the protocol that is in place if you find one. Because then that becomes a whole nother issue of whether you can even build right there.
Correct, yes.
Leslie, I think that's what you had pointed to, was that there was protocol in there.
Well, I think it's just
assessment.
demonstrating that in 2002, there were some of these concerns, and there was, I guess, no definitive determination. The city has no specific requirements as far as burial grounds are concerned. Certainly, there are state and other requirements that go into place, but just to kind of, so we understand what we're talking about, the city does not have any specific requirements for developers other than what might be required by state and other environmental regulations.
And I will just say, having incidentally been a part of one of those, everything stops.
Yes.
So it's not this is not, just because the city doesn't have any specific things to deal with this, the reason I would speculate is because the state requirements are pretty robust.
If I may comment on that, Mr. Flory.
Sure.
As of this afternoon, I can confirm there are depressions at the site of those two small crosses. I'm no expert on this. Depressions in the ground at those two crosses.
So what I would say in return to that hearsay or somebody allotting this, I could say there's a grave site right out here on the side of the road means absolutely nothing. The same thing that it meant back there when the man had said it, that there was a grave site on that site, and they had already done a study on that to see if there was anything there. I don't, there should be nothing else really questioned or asked on that part. If we come into construction at that point and something arrives at that point, again, the protocol would be to stop. There's nothing else you can do. There's nothing else to kind of put down and to say, hey, you go do this or you do that. No, you stop and you evaluate what's there at that point. I do believe that the section would probably be down there towards the end on that section 5 or whatever. So it would be far down the line if something was discovered or something was to happen, but to, ask for, there to be a protocol or something like that when, number one, it's not required. Number two, it's already been studied. I don't think that, it's conducive for, for that to, to kind of be part of us asking for the proffers to be removed. That, is basically was put there, now even with the architectural review, now the HOA actually kind of handles that. The city does not handle that, period, so that would be within the HOA. So I think what we're talking about right now with the architectural review and kind of looking at that and looking at what homes and stuff were already there, I don't think it's necessary to even, for that to even be a proffer at this present time, I think it's really invalid.
Well, and thank you, Mr. Wells.
Yes, you're welcome.
And I will just point out, I think the developer, at least with the initial platting, and there is a survey, and his statement is something like he conducted a survey and could find no indications, but his findings were not exhaustive. But we have no ability to add that as add any of these things necessarily as a requirement at this point. And it's not, any special consideration for grave sites is not in the original 5 proffers either. So unfortunately, at this time, we don't really have any ability to add a condition like that, other than to encourage Mr. Wells to exercise diligence as he excavates that property. So, yes, sir. Well, again, the location of that road, I mean, that's for Mr. Wells to be on notice of, but we can't. Yeah, we have no legal mechanism that allows us to add a condition along those lines at this point. Our choices are leave things as they are, where that's not taken into account besides the fact that, other than as provided for by state law and the local zoning ordinances, or accept this new proposal. And
Right, and the task before us are the 5 proffers.
the old
remove
proffers.
And the 3 new proffers to accept.
Well,
Or we don't even have to accept, it's the 5 removing. And of those 5, some seem to be, already.
yeah, and
removed
I don't,
themselves.
so,
I'm hearing, I'm in support of removing the 5 proffers with a note of concern on 2 areas. One, there's an ambiguity which I think makes the neighborhood uncomfortable on what's being built. So just a note of concern to have a dialogue with Wells, home builders, and the neighborhood, setting sort of the tone and parameters of what's going to be built, of what I'm hearing is similar to what's there already. I can tell you, I've been in Wells Home Builders properties east side, west side, as a realtor, I was in one 2 hours ago, come to think of it. They're good builds. I think having a good dialogue with the developer about what it's gonna look like would reduce some of the concerns and the unease of the community of what I'm hearing. The second note of concern that I would just bring up is that connector road specific to fire access. I mean, we've got that beautiful West End Fire Station, but if it's got a loop all the way around, the report I read was it's gonna take 4 to 7 minutes versus 1 minute if it can go straight through Bookerdale. So I'm in support of accepting the removing of all 5 of those previous proffers with those 2 notes of concern.
That makes sense.
Well, so I would say, I would be in support of removing those proffers and adding back the 3, but I would not be in support of simply removing those proffers without adding back the 3 proposed. And I don't think we can just take those off and not add anything back. The choice is accept the new proffer or reject the new proffer. I agree with the 2 concerns that I see here that are really in the scope of today's inquiry are consistency, architectural consistency, and the timing of the construction of the access road. I think, as I see it, there are 3 things the other thing we could hypothetically do is we could table this to our next meeting in hopes that the applicant might address some of those things that those issues that we've raised. Some, maybe not. Or we could approve it as set forth, or we could reject it as set forth. So I think the question is, do we have a motion?
So rejecting them also does not address staff's concerns that they.
Yeah, I mean, a vote for denial or a recommendation for denial would still go to your city council.
Right.
As a recommendation for denial. And then it would be, incumbent upon city council to decide if they wanted to agree with that denial. The denial, of the 5 proffers, 2 are non-existent. So it would essentially still require the developer to pay 26.5% towards a bridge improvement to make that connection at the 61st lot, and to abide by guidelines, architectural guidelines. So that would remain in place with a denial.
So there is concern on my part with the 26.5%. There's also much concern on my part for not developing the entry exit for first responders. That raises serious concerns for me. To move that, and instead of at the 61st, then it moves to the right, I'm concerned with that. So if I were making a motion, I would make a motion to table this before it got to council.
All right, is that your motion?
That is my motion.
I'll second that motion.
So, okay, just before so the motion's been made and properly second. Just a quick discussion point before the vote is called. If this is tabled, I guess I would then ask, is the considerations that you've heard tonight, what is the appetite to address some of those concerns? And then,
Yeah, and I hear what you're saying. I want to give the applicant time. I don't want him to have to say something that he's held to tonight necessarily.
I'm good with that.
Okay, so if
no,
you're prepared to do it, that's
No,
fine.
no, I'm fine with that. I mean, I stand firm on what I said from the beginning on the homes and stuff that would be constructed in that neighborhood. I don't think that changes from this meeting to the next meeting. I still stand firm on exactly where my position was, that, the homes and stuff that are there, we would, try to build within that same within that same structure of homes. And I think that's what we've done. We've done a lot. I'm a native of Waynesboro. I was born and raised here. And what we've built here, we've really, built in all parts of Waynesboro, and put things in places to try to bring Waynesboro up. We have 4 homes going in over on East Main Street right now. The main thing that we're looking at is trying to make sure that those areas and stuff look good. They are appealing. They're bringing more people here. I think that's what Waynesboro wants. The residents might not want that, but Waynesboro wants more people coming into Waynesboro. They want them buying more homes. They want more revenue. And I think we have contributed to that over the years and stuff for what we've done throughout Waynesboro, period. Again, we've built pretty much all over, so our standard for what we've done, I think is pretty much up there. I don't want to put us all the way up there, but I think we've done a good job in each one of the neighborhoods and stuff that we built in. And we look to continue doing that, even in the Silver Creek neighborhood. I actually, before a lot of the neighbors and stuff, I actually had bought the homes over there in Silver Creek. I'd actually looked at purchasing different lots even that was there, that was existing even 5-6 years ago, and I did not do so at that point in time, So what I would ask is if we could vote on that tonight, and if, I know the two things, again, that was of question, and I hope this time I've answered a little bit better, but I think the two things were the architectural elements of the home and stuff like that. Again, those elements have not been followed throughout. As Eric had came up here and said that, the builder, which he had built for me too years and years ago, he had picked 2 homes. Once he exhausted those 2 homes, he went and built 2 more homes. He was over top of it. He approved stuff even if it wasn't part of the guidelines and stuff like that. He had approved it off of what he felt that the neighborhood needed to be, not the residents. I would say again that, the development was done back in 2006, 2005, 2006. A lot of the neighbors, and I know it had been mentioned again in within the proffers, that a lot of the neighbors were buying into something at that time. That might have been the case at that time. This is a totally different time now. They have, again, a lot of the residents have bought in the last 5 to 6 years. I am a real estate agent as well. So, what I'm looking at putting there is trying to put the right product that can be appealing to Waynesboro and affordable at the same time. I can tell you, I know Mark had got up here and it said that, to try to build stuff for people that, to try to make things affordable. We did try that here in Waynesboro. We had tried to build stuff in the 250 market. I struggled. I struggled on selling it, where the houses at 325, 350, 375, they were selling just fine. My 250 sales price on the houses, they did not sell. They sat there. I had to make concessions on being able to get those done because of the people that are kind of low income are still not able to kind of afford those homes. If they're 150, they're 125, which is impossible to try to get there, that's a different story. But the 250 market, is unattainable, and was, did not happen. I dropped prices consistently, but again, the 325, the 400, 425, even some of the $600,000 houses, those sold, So again, in that neighborhood, what I would be looking at doing, and again, I agree with what Eric had said as well, that, there could be a consensus, I don't know how that would work, with changing it, maybe putting a new name on it, because it is a different phase, it is a different subdivision, so I don't know how that would happen, but that could be an alternative on naming this something totally different other than Silver Creek, letting Silver Creek remain as the homes that are currently developed or the ones that are coming, letting that kind of be, the Silver Creek subdivision, maybe naming this one something else.
Thank you, Mr. Wells.
Yes, you're welcome.
All right, so the motion that we've got on the table, currently before us, is to table this to the next meeting.
Mayor Lee, if we table this, what is the expectation of the applicant between now and when it comes up again to have in hand for it to get approved?
Well, I think my observation is that what I think I just heard from Mr. Wells is what you've seen is what he's prepared to address on the architectural point. My perspective would be that the access issue still remains. So do we want to are we prepared to vote on the motion to table? Or do you want to revise? I appreciate it, Mr. Wells, but I can't let you talk. I know you want to address it. I can't let you talk all night, though. We got to vote and we'll figure it out. So do you want to revise that motion, or do we want to vote on that motion?
My motion's to table.
Motion to table, okay. All right, we're gonna do a roll call vote on a motion to table this to the next meeting. Ms. Keller,
I second.
this is an aye to table?
Yes.
All right. Mr. Lee?
Aye.
Mr. Stewart?
Nay.
Mr. Flory? Nay. Mr. Fife?
Nay.
A,
Mr. Gibson? Nay. What was your vote?
A. to
Aye.
table.
To table? So that's 3-3.
Because I share the same concerns as Mr. Lee, the access to first responders, and all that.
That,
I mean, I think,
What if we were able to have consideration for the access point? Now, hearing that it's not supposed to be finished until you get to lot 61. I guess I would then be curious to know if the road can still be built, although you're not building the houses there yet.
well, but that's not, so we can't solicit that particular proffer. Like, we have to
Right,
vote
it
on
would
the,
have to be voluntary anyway.
we've got to vote up or down what we've got before us.
So the motion then dies.
Well, so then I think the question is, if we're not gonna table it, we're either gonna approve it or deny it. As currently set forth.
I live right next door to that access road.
I-
I would love to have it moved up before the 61st.
I appreciate that, folks. Public comment is over. I've given everybody a lot of latitude because I want to hear from everybody, but we need to have a motion and a vote.
So I would then move to approve the voluntary proffers as presented.
I'll second.
All right.
Do
You
we
have-
add our concerns within the
I don't think they need to be,
motion?
I don't think they need to be,
Because they've been addressed.
yeah, I think that's the idea.
Hearing them.
That's the idea.
Yeah, I mean, I think your recommendation can be to approve the new proffers. Certainly, the fullness of your discussion, is council will be privy to. Another public hearing will occur at council. So,
Right. And it would be the applicant's, to his benefit, before it goes before council, to have some of those issues that have been raised and discussed here more formally put forward.
sure.
So the motion's been made and properly seconded.
Do we have a second?
I think I said.
You seconded, all right.
Second.
All right, so this is a motion to approve as proffered. Ms. Keller?
Approve.
Mr. Lee?
Nay.
Mr. Stewart?
Aye.
Mr. Flory? Nay. Mr. Fife?
Aye.
Nay.
And it's not, and we're not dispositive on rejection because
Whether that doesn't address anything.
it's 3-3.
Where's Phil when you need him?
Yeah.
So we can recall the first motion to table with further discussion. I think that's the most advantageous thing to do at this point, to allow further discussion to be made. So I'll restate that motion to table to the next.
All right, I'll second. Ms. Keller?
Table.
Mr. Lee?
Aye.
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 All right, so the application is going to be carried over to the next City Planning Commission meeting, which is,
February 17th.
will be February 17th after we pick all of our dates. And the applicant can take our feedback and modify the proffers as he sees fit or not at that time. Thank you.
And just to be clear for the public that's in attendance, we most likely would not schedule another public
Yeah.
hearing unless those proffered conditions were to change drastically from now until then, but most likely there would be no public hearing at the next meeting. But always an additional public hearing at city council who makes the final decision. The planning commission is your recommending body.
All right. Thank you very much, everyone.
Public hearing on it, if he gets to make changes to proffers, why we wouldn't be able to hear them, or why is that?
So we can talk about the legal basis for having a public hearing. I'd be happy to talk to you about that after the meeting tonight. There are times that we have to have public hearings and times that we don't, since we've had a public hearing, and there will be another public hearing on any changes that are made. Unless the changes are significant, we're not going to hold another public hearing, and we may or may not hear from the applicant, elect to hear from the applicant again at that time.
But city council will hold a public hearing.
There will be a full public hearing before city council before any of this is permanently approved. Again, all we do is recommend to city council what we think they should do. So none of this is final tonight. None of it will be final on February. Nothing will be decided until everybody has an opportunity to be heard before city council. All right. Thank you very much, everybody, for coming. Thank you to the applicant for speaking and for making himself available for questions. And I look forward to seeing everybody at the February meeting on this issue as well. Next, we have on our agenda, we have the staff presentation of the 2025 Planning Commission Annual Report.
Nobody wants to see the annual report. I was gonna comment on your photo on the flyer.
Oh, I have a photo on the flyer? I hope it's what's on my staff ID picture. That would be funny.
Greg, you get all that on video? Or did battery run out on you?
Gave my 2 cents before that.
I have a lot of memories from the first time Silver Creek was being discussed in here. I was there then.
Some old names in that report. Mike Mayer and Dave Seegers.
So this is the 2025 Planning Commission Annual Report, so it just reviews what the commission did over the course of 2025 and then also some other planning projects that took place over the course of the year. As far as development goes, 2025 did see 2 zoning text amendments, both dealing with bay door orientation. There was 1 rezoning, which was the Waynesboro High School from a couple months ago. 3 conditional use permits, LifeWorks, and then the high school and the General Wayne. And then 3 preliminary plats were reviewed. Creekwood Phases 2 and 3 both had preliminary plat amendments. And then the Hopeman Ridge subdivision, I believe that was early 2025, as reviewed. And also note here that, as you remember, the General Assembly made some changes last year to the Code of Virginia that removed preliminary plats from, sort of plats in general from the review and approval authority, removed that from city councils and planning commissions and placed that as an administrative approval. So moving forward, there won't be additional preliminary plats that appear on this list. And here's a 10-year comparison year over year for the number of development applications that were reviewed. Last year saw a dip. Only about 7 applications total were received, which was down from the year before. And then here's just a quick map of where those applications originated throughout the city for each application type. And then as far as subdivision development goes, construction did remain strong throughout 2025. Construction kicked off at the Aspen Grove subdivision, which is formerly the Rosser Avenue subdivision, and then also over at Kira Heights. And construction continues in a number of subdivisions, including Ivy Commons, Evershire, Anna Marie, and then also Creekwood Village. And here again, 3 preliminary plats that were approved by Planning Commission, Creekwood Phases 2 and 3, those amendments, and then Hopeman Ridge. There are a couple additional ones under staff review, Carisbrook is one, and then also Canton Park. As far as residential building permits, after a slight dip last year, those did increase this year. There were 196 single-family permits issued, and then 14 multifamily permits issued, which was a significant leap over the past couple of years. As far as other planning efforts go, 2025 did see the kickoff for our Waynesboro Together Comprehensive Plan Update. This kicked off in early 2025 when City Council appointed 9 members to a steering committee. It is a 2-year process, so we wrapped up the first year and we're embarking on the second year now. Over the course of 2025, held several steering committee meetings, also 2 rounds of stakeholder meetings, 2 open houses that the public was invited out to. We also ran a public survey that started in the summer and closed at the end of November. We're currently going through the survey results now. Also got some new draft goals drafted for the plan that was actually at the second open house. Public was able to provide feedback to those. So as we continue into 2026, there will be other engagement opportunities, including open houses, additional stakeholder meetings, as we continue to work on drafting that new plan. As for other specific projects, the 14th Street Sidewalk Project did finish construction in late spring of 2025, and that project provided that continuous sidewalk along 14th Street and upgraded that pedestrian crossing at Wayne Avenue at the library. Included curb ramps and high visibility crosswalks along 14th Street, and then also improved crossing at Wayne with those bump outs at each corner. And this was funded through VDOT's Transportation Alternatives Funds. Our Community Development Block Grant Program completed a project out at the Rosenwald Community Center, which included a new ADA accessible crosswalk across Port Republic Road, along with a sidewalk from the Port Republic Road crossing on the other end of the parking lot down to the playground, and then also to an entrance into the building. It's now accessible. Funding was also providing to Renewing Homes of Greater Augusta to provide critical home repair for 3 Waynesboro homes, and that work included roof replacements for those 3 homes, along with HVAC repairs for 1 and a radon mitigation system for another. And funds were also provided to Warm, LifeWorks, and Hero for public services, including case management and emergency rent and utility payments. As far as VDOT projects go, the US 340, which is Rosser Avenue Project Pipeline Study, kicked off in 2025. And this study is being run by VDOT and is looking at the Rosser corridor to examine multimodal needs and safety and capacity improvements that could be made throughout the corridor, which does include several trouble intersections, including that Lou DeWitt and Rosser Wendigo Grove Drive intersection. And this has had, I believe, 2 rounds of public feedback so far. And I believe it's scheduled to wrap up a little later this year, and the recommended improvements that result from this study will likely be a smart scale application for us in this next round. The city was unsuccessful with its round 6 smart scale applications, which included that Lou DeWitt pedestrian project, which would have filled in sidewalk along the Lou DeWitt corridor. The Waynesboro Transit Access Project, which was bus stop upgrades for several stops throughout the city. However, this particular project, we did apply for a transportation alternatives grant through VDOT, and it was identified as a good candidate for the Department of Rail and Public Transportation's merit grant. And so we will be submitting an application for that in February. And then the final application was that Blue Ridge Tunnel Connector Trail. Smart Scale Round 7 opens up a little later this year, and we are currently reviewing potential projects to submit for that. And then finally, the streetscape projects, the West Main project, which was Replacing that center turn lane with the median and a continuous sidewalk on one side is continuing along in its design phase, which I believe is getting close to wrapping up. The Broad Street project is also in design phase. There was a second public input session held in October of 2025. And that project is looking to also make use of that center median and add pedestrian improvements. And then finally, the East Main Street streetscape project. Work on that project kicked off in mid-2024, and that is continuing. And that project is going to reconfigure East Main Street from the Main Street Bridge to the city limits, fill in missing sidewalk sections, and also provide a multi-use path from Hunter Street to near the location where Blue Ridge Bucha is currently. And that wraps up the annual report.
Thank you very much. Do you have any questions about the annual report? No. All right, public comment period for items not on the agenda. Do we have anybody from the public who would like to?
I don't know, you ran them all off.
After I let anybody talk whenever they like. You know, someday, what's that? You know, I try to strike a balance, Mr. Lee. I try to strike a balance of maintaining some informality so that we don't have to, anyways.
I thought you did good.
I want people to feel like they are heard as often as possible. Sometimes I succeed and sometimes I do not.
It's always good to have a
Matters from staff.
I think the only thing that I had was just to continue to remind everyone about the comprehensive plan process that's ongoing. We do have a lot of comprehensive data and public input in the form of a phase 1 public engagement report, and then this latest survey that wrapped up and second public open house is going to kind of, all that information that we gleaned is going to be I guess, used to expand that public engagement report. So just ask you all to kind of stay in tune with that as we continue to progress.
All right, thank you. Commissioners, correspondence and communication.
The only thing I would have is, I have a question. As someone who walks the Greenway quite frequently, from North Park all the way to the Y, once you get to the Y, there's no sign that tells you to go up the street to go to Ridgeview. Has there ever been any thought given to putting some signage up there to navigate you around the Greenway?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's certainly something we can bring up to Parks and Rec, since that project has, you know, the 14th Street project has recently been completed, to see what their kind of overall signage plans are, but.
Because I think we're still at an impasse from North Park to Basic Park with the guy that owns the land along the river, ain't we?
Yeah. Yeah, I'd certainly bring it up to him.
All right, do we have a motion?
I move that we adjourn.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, hearing none, we are adjourned. Thank you very much. Mr. Lee, that's what you get for voting for me.